We need to be consistent with what we're doing here, not move the needle drastically, stay on course. And it's tough. It's tough when you got a team of people. It's really difficult when you're a solo person out there because you don't have the other people in your group going, all right, just take a big deep breath for a second. Hold on. It's going to be fine.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. As always, I'm Matt Benelli, joined by Garrett Fry. And gosh, we are so excited, as always, to be here with you. And thank you guys for being here with us. We got an awesome topic with you today. Garrett, you brought this one to the table, and it was funny because we both have had conversations with people about this. So let's dive in. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. And, today, to just put the topic on the table is this concept called the 45-day rule that we talk about all the time. In coaching, we talk about it all the time. And we bring it up, and it's a place that we go to because when people come into coaching and working with us, what we find is people are always in this place of, how long is this going to take? How long is it going to take for results to come in, for, all of a sudden to see changes, to see a different picture? And this concept of 45 days is this place where it's like, you got to give any change you make in your business about 45 days. If you're changing mindset type stuff, I mean, this is really anything. If you're going to apply something, you got to give it time to work. And Matt, this is a really common roadblock for a lot of people is they don't give things time to work. They dabble in stuff. They put a little bit of time here, a little bit of time here, a little bit of time over here, but they don't fully commit to one thing. And when you commit to that one thing and you go all in and you give that chance for these results to happen, all of a sudden you can sit back and go, okay, I have control. I'm in the driver's seat. I can see that I can make this thing go. But if we're dabbling, what happens is some results will come up down the road and we go, ooh, where did that come from? Was that? Is it the market? Is it the weather? I mean, it must be politics. That must have been. Oh, it's the interest rate. The interest rate change. That's what it was. Okay, great. We don't take any credit for ourselves in that we created it and we did it and we made that happen. And so I want to talk about this today, Matt, because it's one of those things that if you understand the concept and the philosophy behind it and you can commit to it, it really puts you into a driver's seat with your business.
It really does. And you had mentioned consistency in that little intro of this too. And I want to highlight, like, this isn't like do something today, wait 45 days and see a result. This is, doing things consistently day in, day out, and at least 45 days to start to see the beginning of results, right? So, if we apply this directly to, let's say, building sales in your business, doing something consistently for 45 days may create the initial conversation of a sale within 40, at that 45-day plus mark. It's not going to end with a commission check necessarily in your lap. It could. There are things that can happen, right? Obviously, this is kind of an average of our experience here in working with this with people. But even if you apply this to your personal things, like, it's 75 hard, which is something that I've done a lot, obviously. People who follow us know that. That 45 days into 75 hard is when you're like, hey, I'm seeing some really interesting results start to happen. The scale is moving. I'm looking different, like in my pictures. I'm feeling different in my head. And it is really interesting how that applies to our personal things as well. If you read every day for 45 days, all of a sudden you just get really good at reading and you get this habit of doing these things. So this does work for business and personal stuff, but it does involve being consistent on a daily or weekly basis, depending on what the task is, in order to start to see results, not necessarily see the results that you ultimately want to see, but then imagine the compound effect that happens after that, Garrett. After 45 days, all of a sudden it's like, all right, we're going to hit the accelerator pedal.
I like that we're going down this aspect of like all these different, be it health, be it, reading, be it all these different pieces that we can add in, because when you start to understand the elements of it, I watch people that'll do all the systems, the right systems for their business. And they're like, what is wrong? Like, what is going on? Like, why am I not seeing results? And all of a sudden they'll have a mindset shift. And in that mindset shift, it all of a sudden makes all the systems that they're doing more powerful. and it brings them all to life. And so 45 days from when the mindset shift happened, all of a sudden they're like, what changed? What was, oh, back here, this is where you were at this crossroads. And so, like, as a coach, what I always do, Matt, is I'm always writing dates down. So we'll be coaching, we're going through our time. Sometimes I'll say them out loud to them, to the person that we're working with. Sometimes I'm completely silent about it. But I will sit back and be like, okay, so today, as we're recording this, it's September 18th. So let's say somebody today, well, I'll use a real life example. I have a gentleman that I coach that was involved in a nonprofit organization. He was on the board, and it was his dream to be on the board. So as a coach, I was like, you should do this. This is your big dream. You should be involved with this. It's going to put you around great people, great connections. It turned into an absolute nightmare. It turned into the board from hell. It was an incredible amount of work. It was incredible amount of bickering and people not seeing eye to eye and not happy with the direction of where things were going. Events that would come up were just a trudge and nightmare. And more often than not, he would jump on a phone call with me going, I'm going to punch somebody. Like he goes, and this is not a negative person. Like this is somebody that is usually so positive. And I'm like, dude, come back. Like you're going to be okay. Let's figure this out though. And he finally came to me and said, I'm quitting the organization. I'm quitting the nonprofit that I'm involved with. I'm walking away from it. And I even asked him, I said, do you want to be involved on any lighter levels in there? Like just step back from it. He's like, no. He goes, I need to step away from this thing. Like I am got major negative stuff building up. So we wrote the date down. I wrote the date down. Put that date down as we're rolling through this time. I brought it up to him at a point because he was frustrated. He said, I'm not seeing a flow of business right now. Other people in his office were seeing good flows of business because I coach others in his office. They're seeing business come in and you can pull your hair out when you're watching others be successful. And you're like, why not me? And I finally had to tell him, dude, this is your time frame. This is the date that we're paying attention to. And this is what spurred this podcast, him and a couple other people that I'm watching this with right now, Matt. All of a sudden, I get his weekly meeting from him that everybody turns into us as coaches. And all of a sudden, that meeting goes, oh my gosh, here comes the business. I all of a sudden have, and he starts listing out all the listing appointments, all the buyer intake forms he's done, all the great people that are coming into his world. And we look back on it exactly 45 days from the day that he decided he was out of that organization. Like, again, didn't change his systems at all, but changed his mindset around the systems that he was doing, bringing better energy, attracting better people, 45 days.
I love that example, and it's incredible how just changing an environment can make that impact on the activities that you do, which highlights also kind of the sensitivity here and all the things that can happen within a 45-day period. And even though this is we call this the 45-day rule, like this can reset almost at any given time too, right? Like 2 weeks into that 45 days, he could have had a different mental shift that would have, reset a different 45 days. And so there's a lot of overlap in the things that we do. And even using, our new venture as an example, like 45 to 60 days in of doing YouTube, which is a new thing for us, we learned some things about thumbnails and things that we wanted to change. And it took us a bit of time to then see that. And then we learned that and made the change. And now we're seeing some different results out of that. Another 45, almost 45 days from there. We haven't been doing this for as long as it seems, right? And so if we apply this, I think it allows us to then experience some patience, right? Because here's the other thing, the cool thing with the 45-day rule is it involves two things primarily. One is consistent action, and the second thing is patience on seeing results, which those two things compete with each other. We're like, well, if I'm patient, that means I'm waiting. It's like, no, we're just patient on the results side. We need to take aggressive action, relentless action on the front side and continue, even though we know the results aren't there yet. It's like having faith, doing something that you can't see the benefit of, knowing that it's going to come and taking in whatever does come. Because this can work in the opposite direction too, Garrett. We've seen this happen with people where they stop doing something or their energy shifts and all of a sudden 45 days going the other way, business dries up. And we don't want to see that.
But you can take a locomotive that's under full steam and all of a sudden throw a wrench into the work. And it's going to take a little bit for that thing to come to a halt. But at the same point, like you can sit back and go, like, what in the world made this thing all of a sudden break down? Well, 45 days ago, we had this happen in our life. And yeah, there were people coming in off the great energy from the time before and the relationships and the energy, the things we were doing. So it can work both ways, Matt. And it's really important to understand that. Hard to make the connection. And that's what I find for most people is that 45 days out, that's where I was kind of throwing around like, is it the interest rate? Is it the weather? Is it this? Is it politics? Like, what is it that made this business dry up or come in? And the reality at the end of the day is that it is this time frame here. And the making of the connection from this to that 45 days out is what I have found is, and I hate the word impossible, but it's almost impossible for people to necessarily do on their own. It's too far. I used to use the analogy of a dog peeing on the carpet. And it's like when the dog pees on the carpet and you get after that dog right now, the dog goes, oh crap, I made a mistake. Okay, I'm sorry. Like I see it. I peed and I got in trouble. But if you're like leaving the house and you're like, see you later, little puppy, and the dog pees on the carpet, and 4 hours later, you come home to let the dog out, and you're like, oh, bad dog. Dog's like, ah, what did I do? Like, I was sitting here hanging out, resting, and like all of a sudden the key goes in the door, and you come in the house, and I don't think I like it when you come home. That's what I don't like. That's scary. Like, you come home and you're mad at me every single time. Well, they're connecting a different thing to the actual thing that you're upset about. This happens in our business all the time. We watch, Matt, two people in the same office that have different patterns, and one's telling me that this is the busy time for their market and their season, and the other guy's going, oh, no, this is the slow time right now. And I can always look back. What were you doing 45 days ago? I actually think your market has very little impact in you guys. And I'm talking to all of you out there. But specifically these two guys, like, I think it's not the marketplace. I think it's you. And what are you doing? And what are your systems?
Well, and we know it's not the marketplace because you can take two people in the same office and they can experience different results at the same time. You can take two businesses, you can take two restaurants in the same location and they can experience different results at the same time. We see it all over the place. Why does this business fail while this business thrives? And you mentioned it's really hard for people to make the connection of what's really going on. And this gets into like, are you documenting the things that you're doing? Right. I mean, and there's a lot of different underlying components to this, but let's just start with what you said is having a weekly meeting with yourself to understand what did I do last week and what am I doing this week? It could be as simple as just saying those two questions. What did I do? What am I doing? And then writing it down. So 6 weeks, 8 weeks from now, you can go back to that and say, that's what I was doing 6 weeks ago. Because if you are trying to do a lot, you might not have realized like, oh, wait, I was doing this. And then I switched to doing this just 2 weeks later. And then I switched to doing this 2 weeks later. I was never consistent in this thing, but this thing here actually seems to be something that is producing results for me. So what if I just leaned into that for the next 6 to 8 weeks? Let me see what would happen. Oh gosh, 2 months. That's a long time to wait. Well, you're not waiting, you're putting effort in on something that you believe will produce results, which is why we talk so much about just conversations. If you focus, I was having a text message back and forth with someone the other day, and new agent just getting started out. And I said, just go and have as many conversations as you possibly can. I was like, yeah, but like, is that going to work? What else should I be doing here? I was like, you're new. You have something else that's supporting you right now. Have as many conversations as you possibly can and stick with it. And you are going to see opportunities start to come out of that if you are consistent with it. But you have to be patient and relentless with having those conversations and write it down. So that's one of the big things I see, Garrett, is writing things down. What did I do? What am I doing? What are some other things that you see people maybe miss the mark on and in terms of not being able to recognize the 45-day rule? And what are the things that people are doing that are able to take advantage of it?
Well, I think that when we go back to consistency here, and I'm actually not going to leave the topic that you're kind of on here right now, writing it down and having that meeting with yourself, because what I have watched is that, and again, because we force people to kind of track this stuff, is that more often than not, I can pull out their sheets from 45 days ago, when they're trying to figure out what broke down here, or where the success is coming in from, I can go back and look back 45 days and be like, here's exactly what you were doing. And there's a beauty in tracking that information. Very few people track what they're doing. They don't know the metrics. So you're always kind of guessing. And so if you're always kind of guessing, you really can't be in the driver's seat or take full action on, okay, what do I do that causes this thing to move forward? So the challenge that then happens is the other part that really stood out to me about what you just said is 2 months, or it's a long time. And it is a long time. It's a very long time of being consistent with stuff. So what happens is we have 1 week where we get all excited, we get all fired up, like, I'm going to do this. What am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to really focus on phone calls this week. Okay, great. And we're on it. And we do a great job with phone calls. And we high five ourselves. We pat ourselves on the back. We got crushed this week with phone calls. And then we take that energy, and let's say we have the next week where we're totally distracted and we're totally off. We got all kinds of stuff going on in our life. And we now it's all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, I was good with my phone calls. Now I'm off again. What should I be doing? I know, reviews of my clients' real estate. I'll do that. I've been wanting to do those. I'm going to get into doing those. And we throw a little little energy towards that all of a sudden. And the thing is, we're doing stuff, but there's no consistency. There's no pattern. There's no way you can look back on this as your business and say, okay, that was a driving factor. This was the driving factor. We're constantly in this guessing game of what is it that makes this thing work. And so, Matt, I think that's where the mental fatigue comes down. And this is where the mindset fatigue comes down of like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe this isn't my industry. Maybe this isn't my job. Maybe I can't build a referral-based business. And it's because we don't have any consistent efforts going into anything. We have good stuff. We got great systems. But so I want to really lean into that place of tracking, that place of knowing what is it that you're doing? How often are we doing it? What is the impact that we're making out there? And sometimes the impact you won't be able to see for a while. And you said faith. You got to be able to have a lot of trust in it. And I think that's a piece also. You need to believe in yourself. You need to believe in what I'm doing is going to move the needle and is going to work. We're in a position of this right now of, the things that we're doing is we're building and growing a new business. And Matt, it's super easy. We do it every week. We have our meetings with each other of like, maybe we should do this. Maybe we should go down this route. And we have to constantly remind ourselves, no, like, hold on. Like, we need to be consistent with what we're doing here, not move the needle drastically, stay on course. And it's tough. It's tough when you got a team of people. It's really difficult when you're a solo person out there, because you don't have the other people in your group going, all right, just take a big deep breath for a second. Hold on. It's going to be fine.
That's a great point. And if you're a leader of a group, it's even, I think, easier to stay consistent because you're like, well, I got to make sure everybody else stays consistent. Whereas if you're just leading yourself, I mean, you can easily kind of have those conversations of like, well, this isn't working. Let's do something different. And on the faith side, I think this is why talking about this right now, this time of year, just starting Q4 is important, because a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to wait until I write that business plan. I'm going to wait until I have this training session coming up before I dive into anything or even stick to something that I think might work for me, because I just want to be sure, right? And so we use these surety of a business planning workshop or something to then have a little bit more faith in, okay, I believe this can come because this trainer over here told me that this will work. Well, we're telling you right now, whatever it is that you believe might work can work for you if you stick to it. So why not get consistent now and then use the business planning workshops and things that you're going to do to then reinforce, so you could take some feedback from that and then use it to design your perfect 2025 for yourself. Because and I was having this conversation with a client just a couple of days ago, and he was talking about, I want to make sure that I really set myself up for success going into 2025. And I said, well, based on the results we're seeing here, it seems like we're doing pretty well in producing. So why don't we just make sure that you're able to stay consistent with these things? And we talked about, well, what are the challenges that we typically face in the fourth quarter that maybe in prior years have pulled us off track? Because if we go back and look, we can probably identify moments that have pulled us out of routines particularly when we like have people coming back after summer, we get into a routine and then all of a sudden the holidays hit and routines change and we pull out of something that maybe been working. And I said, let's identify just a handful of things or even down to one thing if it's helpful for you that you can be consistent with. You mentioned phone calls, right? How much time does it take to make a handful of phone calls each day? But we load our days up with so much so that when we don't do that, we're like, well, I can't do everything. So now let me go pick something different. It's like, no, let's just go back to that one thing. Spend 30 minutes making those phone calls today, this week, whatever it is. Even if you only get through one phone conversation, but you showed up for that time and you build consistency with it, that's going to set you up for an incredible next quarter. And so right now, more than ever, it's a great time of year to lean into really being aggressive with something and being patient on the results.
So Matt, you talk about the holidays, and I have laughed over the years because I'll watch somebody that says, "Yeah, my first quarter is always really busy," or "My first quarter is always really slow." You get two different people of what they think first quarter means to them. More often than not, if we have a slow first quarter type of person, they typically will say things like, "I don't bother people during the holidays. It's personal time. It's their time. I don't want to, that's family time. I let everybody have that time to themselves. Great. Okay. Quiet first quarter. Just how it works. Goes hand in hand. The other side of it is like, I really pour into my people during the holidays. This is my time to connect, and I do, drop-bys with different stuff, and I'm in their world, and we have a little holiday gatherings and things like that. And I sponsor lights in the park, and we all go down, and I have all my friends and all my clients down so we can all look at Christmas lights together. Whatever it might be, that person that's having a strong first quarter always has a lot of stuff in the fourth quarter that's happening typically around the holidays. Goes hand in hand. And so I think it's like the thing I want everybody actually to really walk away from now is that you have way more power than you think. You have way more control than you think. We give a lot of power away to the mercy of like everything that's going on around us. And we have a lot more control. I want to give one more example, Matt, of because that spurred this 45-day rule. Do you mind if I jump down this path?
Please go. Yeah.
So another agent, I'm not calling agents' names out, and I hope you guys are okay with that right now because they haven't given me their story to share. So this is another person that hired an assistant and had an assistant for about the past, 9 months. And we were obviously watching that this assistant relationship was not working well. It was starting to build up. There was energy and mistrust, and people were kind of bickering with each other. The agent that also hired on this assistant gives up a lot of her day-to-day working routine to this assistant to take care of for them. And that can be a lot of the notes and scheduling appointments and, making sure that there's a lot of connection going on in the database. And I watched this happen, and I kind of can see this buildup of handing off of these things that they would typically should be doing a lot sometimes themselves. Same thing. Assistant quits. And I was like, ooh, perfect. Wrote the date down. Here's the date that the assistant quit on. And all of a sudden, you have this agent that says, okay, no assistant right now. I'm not hiring an assistant again. I'm taking full reins, back control of my business, and let's go and do this. And it's like, all right, let's go. Now, this agent, I've watched this happen a handful of times. And I can watch this pattern when there's an assistant or somebody they've hired in their business, let them go, move on, grab the reins again. 45-day rule never fails me on this one. And this agent produces a ton of business. Like, it's the difference of going like things are a little bit quiet to like, I just put 11 million in escrow. Like, that's the type of business that now that's not one transaction. That might be 4 transactions, but it's like nothing to whammo. Here we go with $11 million in volume pouring into the pipeline. Always 45 days. And I now can let them know when these things happen in their business, just sit back 45 days. We know how this works. You're all of a sudden going to call me and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, here it comes. And I just received a phone call here just recently of, here we go. And I'm like, 45 days? Like, that's just the way it works. So we see it all the time, Matt. We get to, this is one of those, as we say, in your own business, it's hard to acknowledge the 45-day rule. As a coach and working with people, We see it all the time. It's like, yeah, consistent, worked again. Yep. Why don't we just lean into that always?
We face an internal battle with ourselves all the time. And you and I experience this personally. And we mentioned in growing this business too. And so I think this is where I think a key takeaway for everybody today and things that you can put into action right now is document, 1, your thoughts, and 2, your actions. And then the second part is select something to be consistent with and lean into and give it room to breathe. And by that, I mean, be patient on the results, but don't stop the action. It's like when you're trying to lose weight, like, oh, this isn't working. And you stop doing the things when it's like, you could have been 1 week away from seeing that scale move the way that you wanted it to. You could have been 1 month away from seeing it make a big move of whatever you wanted it to, or a body recomposition, whatever it is. But because you weren't seeing the results today, which are reflective of who you were yesterday, instead of being patient on the actions you're taking today, which will be reflective of who you are tomorrow, but we can't see tomorrow yet because we're still today. So know that you're transitioning and changing who you are now, right? And fight the internal battle to stop. Stay consistent with that thing that you believe. And I say believe because whether you know it or not doesn't necessarily matter. It's if you believe it, it will become true for you. And all of a sudden, you're going to start to see those results, which will reinforce then. And that identity shift is going to be really, really powerful when you recognize it. But you got to document it to be able to see it.
Well, and I think as tools that people can walk away from with this right now is that success leaves clues. It always has, and in anything that we do produces results, and if done consistency produces results. The biggest challenge, Matt, and I think the biggest takeaway I could hope anybody takes out of this is that this is a consistency piece, is what this is. And the more you can understand that consistency will bring whatever results it is, positive or negative. If you guys want to create a negative affirmation and focus on it for the next 45 days, you can create that crap in your world. If you want to take a positive one and focus on it for the next 45 days, you can create it. And I think that this is your opportunity to sit back, document what you're doing, and then realize that whatever you're doing consistently over and over and over and over and over again, it will produce results. It always does. And there's a lot of systems out there. Whatever system you choose to follow, they're well documented. Whether it's weight loss or whether it's building your business, follow a system that has produced predictable results for many people and put your energy into it and be consistent with it. Don't try to recreate the wheel. Don't make the Garrett system that we're like, I'm just going to do this my way. Yeah, it's great. There are highly effective systems out there that you can follow. And with that being said, Matt, I think I'm good.
Yeah. Let's. I want to hear. I mean, it would be awesome to hear from people, right? What are 1 or 2 things that you've been consistent with? If you have those top of mind, drop them right here in the comments on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to hit subscribe and hit that little notification bell. 1, it helps us show up so that you guys see these podcasts, and 2, it helps other people see it so we can continue to bring value to more and more people. But if you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment. If you're listening on audio, you can either go over to YouTube to drop a comment, shoot us a message, or if you're inside our 11 circle, you can go there and drop a comment, make a post. Hey, here's a big takeaway, something I've been doing consistently that's helped lead to me success. Or ask the question if you're curious what other people are doing consistently that's leading to results. Ask the question. We're all here to support each other on that one.
We are all here to support each other. And as Matt said, you're listening to Life at 10 Tenths right now. Our coaching program is the 11 Circle inside of Life at 10 Tenths. And if you want to come and be a part of what we are doing, working with people every week, have access into Matt and I, but also have access into a collective group of people that we do live coaching sessions together. We are constantly focusing on how are you building the best business, the best life, the best world around you. And if you want to be a part of that, come check us out at the 11 Circle inside of Life at 10 Tenths. We'd love to have you there. And we got all kinds of fun stuff that we're going to be announcing here coming up, and things we're doing, business planning coming up in the future. So Matt, thank you, sir. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you listeners out there, and we look forward to seeing you guys soon.